going to have a look at original series, that is Kirk-era Romulans. And for that, we are going to have a look at the seed cards that we're using, and the general deck strategy. In this case, what we're doing is we're playing a classic speed solver with some kind of interaction, and the main point is there will be a bonus point engine that hopefully saves us doing a third mission and gets us around 30 to 35 bonus points, so ideally we get by with completing 2 missions. Okay, so let's have a look at the setup that we need. Let's start with the doorways. We are playing an alternate universe doorway. We are also playing a battle bridge door, a Q's tent, and a temporal benefactor. Now, why are we playing these cards? First of all, alternate universe doorway is the one we need because all the cards that we're playing are alternate universe icon. Battle bridge door is not strictly necessary for this deck, but it makes certain elements a lot easier. Q's tent is basically necessary because it allows us a place, it gives us place to store all the cards that we are going to download, and we are going to download a lot of cards, and all these cards would be dead draws. If they end up in our hand, we would have to waste a card play to play that, and we want them to download, so they shouldn't clog our hand. We just put them in the Q's tent. And the other one is the Temporal Benefactor. Now, the Temporal Benefactor has a lot of text on it. What we really care about is that the personnel that is going to be our benefactor, that's Captain Kirk from the Cage expansion, that he can lend his skills to all the personnel we have in play that name him in lore. So whenever we play a personnel that has Captain Kirk in lore, they are going to be able to use all his 7 skills. And that's important for the setup that we are using. Now, let me just double check a few things here. Yep, that should be fine. Okay, so that's 4 doorways. After doorways, we are going to use our missions. And original Series Romulans have a very nice theme that works in the neutral zone. So we are going to play 5 neutral zone missions and 1 outside. I'm going to explain in a second why. Our neutral zone missions are 3 spaces: evade sensors, investigate destruction, and patrol neutral zone, as well as the planet missions investigate decaying radiation, covert installation. All of these are in the neutral zone, and then we have examine protected culture, which is outside the neutral zone. Now, we could also run a few different missions. I'm going to explain in a moment why we are going to need these in particular. Patrol neutral zone can be a bit tricky because that one can, in theory, be stolen. But since we will always have a ship in the neutral zone and we are going to defend ourselves, we will probably be able to keep this mission safe. Now, that mission setup means that these 5 missions will usually always be together, unless your opponent also has a neutral zone mission or several of them. Then things can become really tricky. But most of the time we can have these 5 missions separate, and this one might end up next to the neutral zone. It might end up in a completely different place, but wherever it ends up, it's not really that important. Okay, so let's just assume our opponent is friendly and they are sticking to their side of the space line and we are sticking to ours. We would have investigate destruction. Let's say our opponent is over here. Then we'd have a planet. We'd have another planet. We can put region missions on the 2 edges of our region. We can no longer insert them as per the latest rulings, but we can add them to the outer rim of the neutral zone. Patrol neutral zone, I always try to put that one close to the opponent because it's a 5-span mission, so they will have a harder time coming over to us. And also it can be a nice way of luring them into the neutral zone if they try to steal the mission. We've got evade sensors, and exam protected culture is the last one here. Usually we are trying to do 2 missions in the neutral zone, 1 planet, 1 space, that add up to 65 or 70 points. We could also try and do patrol neutral zone for 50 points, but most of the time we get by doing a 30 and a 35. Right, how do we get to do 35, or how do we get to 35 bonus points? That's where the rest of the seed cards come in. We of course need an outpost, and what I usually do is I seed the outpost at a space mission, because we want a planet mission nearby where we seed our draw engines, or some of our draw engines. Usually on the planet that doesn't have a Federation icon, so that's usually covert installation, I seed a duck blind, and I also seed a process or mining. They can't be at a homeworld, they can't be at a mission where we have a facility, so it's usually always the planet next door. Duck blind gives us an extra end of turn draw if we have 2 anthropology there, and process or mining does several things. It allows us to discard a card from hand, score 1 point, and draw 2 cards at the start of our turn if we have 2 geology there. So early on we want to have 2 anthropology here, 2 geology here, for an extra end of turn draw and a start of turn card draw. We will also run the neutral zone. This gives all the ships in the neutral zone an extra range +2, also for the opponent, but that's not something we're worried about. And once per game we can download a certain objective, test for weakness. And also if we have an exposed ship in the neutral zone at the end of the turn, exposed means it's not cloaked, it's not docked, so it's basically an open target. We also get an extra turn draw, so that's already a 3rd extra draw. And we also have 5-year mission. That gives us another extra end of turn card draw if all our personnel and ships in play are original Series era. So between the neutral zone, 5-year mission, and duck blind, and our regular end of turn card draw, we draw 4 to end our turn, and then we can also cycle and draw 1 extra with process or mining at the beginning of the turn. To pull all this off, we need a couple extra things. We need the Final Frontier, that's our main play engine that plays on our outpost, meaning we can only play original Series era personnel and ships. And we can play 2 of those for free, and we then still have our regular card play. We also have Make It So. That's going to be important for our bonus point engine. We have a seeded hidden agenda, defend homeworld. We're going to flip this on our first turn. And also Preserver Obelisk. Preserver Obelisk is the new assign mission specialist. It allows you to download personnel at the start of the game that name in lore one of a number of planets that you seeded. And in our case, those are going to be a Romulan guy and a non-aligned guy. And I'll just need to make sure I find them, because they're usually hiding somewhere in the box. So with Preserver Obelisk, we're going to download Vestique, who mentions Gamma Hydra 4 in lore. This is this mission, but we report him to our outpost. And Myra Mini, she names the planet Amaranth in lore, which is the whole reason why we run this planet. So we start with these 2 personnel in play, and that's about it. All in all, these are 13 seed cards, 4 doorways, 9 others, giving us room for 17 dilemmas. And with those 17 dilemmas, we can usually stall our opponent, but we'll have some tricks in this deck as well. So, our opponent has been kind enough to cut our deck, hopefully giving us a good starting hand. And at the beginning of the game, we are looking for several things. we want to get the Romulan version of Mr. Spock out, and we want to get a ship and a commander out. There is one Romulan ship in play in the deck, the Galgathong. That's a unique ship that has a matching commander, Keras. And the Galgathong can be downloaded with the Final Frontiers once per game ability. Once per game, in place of a normal card play, you may download an original series ship. And that's going to be critical for our strategy here. So let's draw our starting hand of 7 cards. We might end up with a very bad shuffle here because it's in decklist. It was in decklist order, meaning all the interrupts and everything were close together. So let's have a look at the starting hand here. We've got several non-aligned personnel, a Romulan personnel, we've got a ship, we've got a doorway, we've got an interrupt. As I said, our main point here for the first turn is going to get Mr. Spock out and also Keras, and ideally we'd also want to have a second geology personnel to start processing ore. We already have one geology here. So, usually the first turn looks like this. If we don't have the Galgathong in our opening hand, we are going to use the Final Frontier to download it. And there's the ship. So that's instead of our regular card play. And then we have 2 free plays, and they don't really matter. If we have a geology personnel, that's great. If we don't, that's not too bad. Let's play an Alice series, and let's play Govos here. They beam aboard the ship, and then we are going to get Mr. Spock into play. We flip our hidden agenda. It's Defend Homeworld. It allows us to discard this objective once per game to grab a security personnel. Mr. Spock conveniently has security, at least his Romulan version does. There he is. And Mr. Spock also has a special download of Getting Under Your Skin. That's one of the cards that we will have in our Q's tent. So, as you know, there are 13 different cards in the Q's tent. And we'll take out Getting Under Your Skin. It says, plays on table if you control 3 Romulan personnel. We do. We had one seeded with Preserver Obelisk. We downloaded Mr. Spock. And you usually get one in your opening hand anyway. And from now on, whenever we play an event on table, not on a personnel, not on a ship, not on a mission, always on table, which is the unspecified part of the table, of the gaming area, we can force our opponent to reveal the top card of the deck. This gives us a little bit of information of what is in the deck, but most importantly, if it is a personnel, we simply score 5 points. So from now on, we want to play an event every turn for this lottery chance of scoring 5 points. And since personnel are the cards that you want out to score missions and to bust through dilemmas, chances are opponents run quite a lot of personnel. Right. That's our one download of a personnel that we can do per turn. So unfortunately we can't get Keras into play right now. So what we do is we put everyone aboard the ship, fly to the mission next door, and then we are going to beam down Myra Mene and Vesnik. If we had a second geology, we would also beam this personnel down right there. The others simply stay in orbit for the moment. They could fly back and pick up the next personnel next turn, but usually it doesn't matter where you end your first turn. Now, at the end of the turn, we draw our regular end of turn card draw. With 5-year mission, we draw a second card because all the personnel in play are original series era. With the neutral zone, we draw an extra end of turn card because we have a starved, exposed non-Federation ship at the neutral zone mission. And we also draw a 4th card at the end of the turn, because we have 2 anthropology here. 2, you say? My Romany only has 1 anthropology, but she mentions Captain Kirk in lore, and Captain Kirk is our Temporal Benefactor, and he also has anthropology, meaning my Romany can also use all his skills. So she has 2 anthropology, meaning we get to draw a 4th card. And that's how we usually end the first turn. During our opponent's turn, we want to get Keras out. If we haven't drawn him by now, at some point during our opponent's turn, we are going to trigger the special download of any Romulan Original Series Personal on the Galgathon to download Keras to the chip. There are 2 copies of Keras in there. There is also a way to download him with a different card. Sometimes you get lucky and get him in your opening hand. But it's usually fine if you get him out during the opponent's first turn. Right, that's during the opponent's turn. Now at the start of our turn, if we had a second geology personal here, we could do the processor mining. Now, we can actually do it. We download Keras during our opponent's turn, but since this ship is at this spaceline location, we can download Keras anywhere at that spaceline location. So make sure that you say you download him to the planet surface and not aboard the ship, because he also has geology, and that means at the start of our second turn we have those 2 geology in play. So that allows us to discard 1 card. Let's just discard this space-time portal from hand. And then we have to put the bottom non-ref card in our discard pile out of play. Let me just move this over a little bit. In this case, that's this card. And for that, we draw 2 cards and we score 1 point. So as you can see, with all these draw engines, we very quickly have a hand full of personnel and ships, and there are also a couple of space-time portals in there. So at some point during the game, if we have a ship and a lot of personnel, we can also do a space-time portal drop, and that can quickly give us a ship and about 6, sometimes 8, sometimes 10 personnel in play in one go. And as always with Space-Time Portal, watch out if your opponent has Temporal Micro Wormhole out, they can cancel that. So maybe they use the Temporal Micro Wormhole early and discard it, then you have a chance to drop your Space-Time Portal ship later in the game. Right, we already have 1 point, but most importantly we have Keras in play now. So really from now on, it doesn't really matter what we play, we just want to throw good personnel out. Let's report 1 personnel for free with the Final Frontier. Let's report another for free. And then we still have our card play. In this case, we play another ship. And this is where the fun starts. Keras has done his thing at the beginning of the turn. So for now, we are going to beam him back up. Now we have a ship with a matching commander in play. That means we can discard Make It So. Reads, once each turn, if your staffed ship has its matching commander aboard, you may, as one of the options, download Ready Room Door to download a Captain's Order card. And that's what we're going to do. We will download Ready Room Door and use that in turn to download a Captain's Order card. So there's a Ready Room Door in our deck. By the way, hi John, hi Neil, I think. So we download this Ready Room Door to hand and we immediately play it to grab a Captain's Order card from our draw deck. And we will start with a Captain's Log. Captain's Log gives the ship that has its matching commander aboard weapons +3 and shields +3. But most importantly, we play an event on table, meaning we can trigger Getting Under Your Skin. if our opponent now reveals the top card of his deck and shows us a personal, we score 5 points. And this is something that we're going to do for this turn and the next 5 turns. There are in total 6 Captain's Order cards in the deck that play on table, meaning that ideally by the end of our 7th turn we have scored 30 points from that if we hit all the time. Of course we won't hit all the time, but every other time is good enough. And if we haven't won the game by our 7th turn, then we have done something wrong anyway. That Ready Room Door has to go on top of our deck, and we will draw into it at the end of our turn. Meaning if you attempt a mission now and use a special download from the Battlecruiser for 1 card from your deck, you will probably shuffle the Ready Room Door somewhere in the middle of your deck, so try to avoid that unless you really, really need to get through a dilemma urgently. We could start attempting missions now, but depending on what your opponent is playing, and whether you have a ship out, that can be a good idea or not. I usually wait until turn 3 when I have more personnel. So, end of turn, we will draw 4 cards. One of them is the Ready Room Door. And as you can see, we are already in Scorched Hand territory, meaning our opponent can play that card. And if we have more than 12 cards, then we have to put some back. So that's why there are a lot of interrupts in the deck that you can play to annoy the opponent. Loss of orbital stability, for example, takes range away from a ship, which was very useful in certain situations. There is also Renewed Spirit here, which unstops a ship's crew or away team at a universal mission, which can be useful at Patrol Neutral Zone, or it can also nullify half of a combo dilemma. So if you want to get rid of a garbage scow, for example, then you can use that. So our turns are going to look like this. We are going to process ore. For 1 point each turn, we are playing a Captain's Order card for 5 points, or for a possible 5 points. And we will also have another bonus point engine that's usually going to kick in on turn 3. So let's play the turn. At the beginning of the turn, we are going to process or mining away this Renewed Spirit, put 1 out of play, draw 2. And then we can just play a personal, another personal, another personal. And the Galgathong will fly home. We'll fly to a mission that has a Federation icon. We'll play the Ready Room Door to download another Captain's Order card. Put the Ready Room Door on top of our deck. And then we're going to use the text on the neutral zone that says, once per game may download Test for Weakness. Test for Weakness reads, plays on a neutral zone region mission. Once per game may download Earth Outpost here. Earth Outpost is a very weak outpost, only shield 16. It's under our opponent's control. And if we destroy this outpost, we score 10 points from that Test for Weakness objective. And it also gives us bonus of double weapons when a single ship attacks a facility. So right now this ship already has printed weapons of 7 plus 3 from Captain's Log, so we're already at 20 weapons, and our battle bridge is full of plasma torpedoes, meaning we have 23 weapons here, enough to damage it this turn, and the next turn we can do the same again and blow this up. So we can score 10 points here. We can score a lot of points from getting under your skin, and on turn 6 we will also have 5 points in total from process or mining, and we should end up around 30 or 35 points by turn 6 usually. There is also another personal in the deck that can score bonus points, and that is Sasolk, the Gaunt Captain, he scores 5 points when you destroy a facility here. So if you have him out early on, or if you have Spock out and you haven't wasted your security download, you can also get him and just have him at that location when you blow up the Earth outpost for another 5 points. I think that's worked in 2 of the 4 games I played last weekend. And the games I won, I had 30 and 35 bonus points respectively, so the bonus point strategy worked whenever I didn't screw up in some other way. So really the deck is about scoring a lot of bonus points and drawing lots of cards. We are drawing more cards than we can play on personal and ships. That's why there are a lot of annoying interrupts. The loss of orbital stability you've already seen. And my main strategy last weekend was Brain Drains. That's an old card that has received an erratum. Plays once every turn on a crew or away team. Remove all skills and cunning from one personal present. So my strategy was to play lots of diplomacy walls, so dilemmas that require 2 or more diplomacy. For example, Faux Pas and the good old Clown Guillotine, and also Gom 2 Shockwave. Some of these have alternative requirements to pass them, but most of the time diplomacy is the way to get through. So a typical combo would be, for example, leading in with the Clown Guillotine, asking for 2 diplomacy, following it up with the M113 creature that allows us to kill a personal of our choice. Of course, we're going for diplomacy. And if they don't have 2 Exibology and can't cure it right away, we also get to kill another personal at the end of the turn. So we would then go for the second diplomacy personal. And then the last dilemma would be something like Faux Pas that asks for 3 diplomacy. And in combination with the Brain Drains, the plan was to just keep them short on diplomacy. However, I ran into a Borg deck that can generate any skill and give it to all the Borg, which made all these walls useless. And I also had a Klingon opponent that had all but one of their diplomacy personal in the deck out on turn 1. So when he attempted and I didn't have a Brain Drain, he just rushed through the combo and there was nothing I could do about it. So that was probably a bad meta call there. We also discovered that there is a deck building error in this. It only was discovered in the last game. And that was that 2 of the Captain's Order cards that I downloaded, Mission Debriefing and Sleeper Ship, are actually hidden agendas. Meaning when I play them or download them, I have to play them as hidden agendas and not I can't use the event part of the card. So they don't actually trigger getting under your skin. At least that's what was explained to me, and that makes sense. They're not necessarily important. Mission Debriefing can be nice, but it can also hurt you. Sleeper Ship can also be nice. It says when your ship wins a battle with its magic commander aboard, I always have Karas aboard his ship, you may report a personal. So it can give you more personal whenever you attack this outpost or an opponent's ship. But for the next iteration, we are probably going to simply exchange them for 2 Captain's Order cards that actually do play on table. For example, Defiant Dedication Plague and the Yellow Alert, which gives all our personal play Cunning +1, which can be very important against things like Spatial Rift and so on. So those are definitely changes that will be in the next version of this deck. Also, the last game I played, I didn't draw into a second ship. I wasted my download at the start of the game for the Galgathon, and then I just couldn't get a second ship. So I'm considering either adding more ships. For example, there's the Class J cargo ship, an original series ship that can download a universal non-aligned original series personal. There aren't too many in the deck, but there's, for example, the female android suit. There's Barbara Sirius with Astra Navigation, which can be an issue in this deck. And there's also the Alice series with medical and diplomacy, transporter skill, biology, and super good attributes. So they can be a good download in the middle of a mission attempt. So either add an extra ship, or maybe get rid of a dilemma and add a space door, so you always have a good supply of ships. Then we could probably cut the number of ships from 6 or 7 to only 3 or 4. 3 is usually what I have out during the game anyway, and a 4th ship is usually not needed. So those are things that are worth considering. We could also eliminate one of the draw engines. For example, we can get rid of the duck blind. Then we could maybe also get rid of the Temporal Benefactor, but I found that Kirk skills are super good to have. The leadership can be a bit of a problem. Diplomacy is always good. Anthropology sets up the draw engine, but there are also some dilemmas that require it. Computer skill is not really an issue. Law isn't that important either. The security can come in handy, and I found that also the youth can be important, especially if you play against a mirror matchup where somebody is playing Isabellas. It's always good to have youth aboard all of your ships. So that's it for the moment. Overall, I was quite happy with how the deck did in the 2 games I won. I think I won on turns 5 and 6. In one game, the brain drains were really good. In one game, the loss of orbital stability were the card that actually won the game. The bonus point engine worked fine. I think there was one game where it hit all but once, and another game where it was about every other card that I revealed. The games I lost were against the Borg deck that I simply didn't know TNG Borg. I didn't really look at the deck. I haven't looked at deck lists online a lot. I'm not familiar with how it plays, so that was simply a lack of preparation on my part. I wasn't aware of what the deck can do. I didn't ask to have things explained properly. In the end, it was Q of Borg, who was aboard a ship that was hit by Cytherians. And apparently, if I had stopped him with a dilemma that allows me a choice stop, then I could have triggered the Cytherians that was already on the ship. I didn't know that. I didn't ask for clarification. I was simply badly prepared for that matchup. I think one more turn would have been enough to give me a second and a third mission. And the other game against TOS Klingons came down to a bad draw. At the end of the day, I only had a single ship out. I had already completed a planet mission. A second planet mission wouldn't have done me any good. So I needed to go for space with my big crew. And I ran into a damage combo that I knew was a thing, but there was at that point no way to play around it, and I conceded instantly because with all the ship, with all those personnel aboard the ship, I also lost the power to trigger my draw engines. So at that point, I was down to draw 1 and still play my 3, but I would have needed at least 3 turns, I think, to get another ship and enough personnel in play to get back to that space mission and do it. And then I would still have been behind in points. And if I remember correctly, Julius at that point only needed to sit in his colony and wait until the dead end, until it counts up to his dead end, which I think was 1 turn. And then he could simply do the mission. So the deck worked fine. I wasn't prepared for some matchups, but it's definitely a deck that I will keep in that form for future tournaments with those small changes. I might also tinker a little bit with the personal selection. One of the dilemmas that gave me a lot of trouble was in the Pale Moonlight, which asks for a low integrity personnel. And I realized once I have lower decks out, that puts Remoog over the 3, I have a really hard time passing that. And I think the only personnel in the deck that could actually get me through that is Excalibur Zora. Because even supervillains like Khan have 6 integrity in this game. So that's a dilemma that I encountered twice in 4 games. Maybe another personnel that gets me through that could be useful, or maybe I simply hope that I don't run into those Austrians with their combos again. One dilemma that also gave me some trouble was, what's it called? I Hate You, which was used by Julius in a very nice combination. I think it was after Shuttle Crash, a dilemma that allows the opponent to stop a youth personnel, and then you have to stop an officer, and then you still have to have a certain set of skills and attributes, and then the next dilemma asks for youth, and usually you don't have a lot of youth. In this deck, though, it's not a problem. I have Captain Kirk, if I remember that he actually has youth, and I start the game with a youth in play, and also 2 of the Romulan Universals, Borix and Remuk, have youth. But after your opponent has taken out some of those guys with some of the choice dilemmas, where they can choose the highest cunning or the highest integrity or something, and you don't know what they're going for in the end, you suddenly realize you have lost all instances of a certain skill and can't get through the other walls. Weirdly enough, this deck I think would have been very good against the deck that eventually won the tournament, Peter Ludwig's 6 Patrol Neutral Zone Federation deck. Because I think if I had gone first in that matchup, I simply could have stolen 2 of the Patrol Neutral Zone missions, because he had no way of starting my turn with a ship in the Neutral Zone region. He couldn't seed one, so the first player gets to have a ship there, and I can set up my dilemma so that I have the right personnel to get through the Clown Guillotine, which asks for 2 diplomacy. One I have on Captain Kirk and Myra Many anyway. The second one I simply download with the ship. So I probably could have stolen 2 missions in that, but in order to get into the final confrontation, you actually have to win the other matches, and that's still something that I'm struggling heavily with. About the other interrupts here, there's of course going to the top that gets Keros or Excalibur Kalis, which is a super powerful card, and also Khan. And we also had all these other things like Remember the Alamo, that's a once per game kill of a security personnel, and the Isabella to blow up ships that fly into the neutral zone. So there were some tools in order to battle the opponent with those cards, but maybe for next time I'll just go all in on a particular interrupt. Maybe something like Barclay's Transporter for Obia would work very well with this. If you just run 12 copies of it and you still draw all those cards, I think that could be a nice take on it. Alright, some of the dilemmas that I used, apart from all those diplomacy things. I had a 2-card combo in space. Usually that was Dead End, followed by a Whale Probe. So if they have already gotten to 50 points, then at least I stop them for another, but that's really a desperation combo. I had the Linguistic, which I think whenever it hit, I can get it for 3 turn stop. Hi Peter. And that's one of my all-time favorites. I think I haven't played a dilemma stack without Linguistic in a very long time. And also the ones that we've seen all weekend are Rules of Obedience, Misinterpreted History, and also Quantum Leap. They were in the Squires piles, they were in regular piles. They are just too good. There are a lot of good personnel that you can use to get through them, but the damage you do is usually enough, even if they just stop it for 1 turn. I think these are I'm not saying they should be looked at, but certainly I don't see a lot of reason to run a dilemma setup without at least one of those 3 somewhere included. Phasing Powers was also used very effectively, especially by Julius, to set up the big kill thingy. at the end of the day, that only costs you one ship. In my case, it was the ship with all my personals, so it worked perfectly. But when you see Thasians, most of the time people had a damage combo afterwards or Thyserians. And I think that's one that we're going to see again and again and again and again. All right, so far for this deck, that has failed just as miserably as the version from last year. So that means we are going to have to look at something different for the next tournament, whenever that may be. Plan is to have a look at one deck each Thursday during the holidays, which means until middle of September. So I'm trying to do that. If you have any deck suggestions that we should look at or any comments, let me know. And also thanks to Neil for pointing out the damage or the dilemma combo that would work against TNG Borg. As I said, I'm not familiar at all with TNG Borg, so I was at a complete loss. And also, if I'm honest, I didn't actually see TNG Borg coming. I saw that there are a lot of dodgy missions, but TNG Borg wasn't on my radar at all. So that's simply I think that's a case of not playing enough. But hopefully that is going to change soon. Since we heard that Julius is planning a big event next year, and maybe Peter is also running something, and I'm crossing my fingers that we will have a 5th iteration of Kaiserfest next year, then I think there should be enough tournaments. All right, that's it for the moment. If you have any comments, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Shooby-doo.